Hello and welcome to another episode of North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me as always, I have Jer, Alex, and Liam. A reminder that this podcast is brought to you by you with your support over at the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Thank you for your support. We literally could not do it without you. All right, let's jump into our opening segment. As always, the best card you're not playing. Up to date, we have Jer. Tell me your secrets, Jer.
The best card you're not playing. All right. Most of you are playing it. It's Search for Azcanta, but I wanted to talk about it just in case there were some of you that weren't playing it because you're like, oh, this isn't standard. I don't know if I want to get it yet. I don't know if it's going to be good. This card's busted. Get it in your deck.
What does it do?
It's a 1 and a blue legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put it into your graveyard. Then, if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform Search for Azcanta.
Oh, it's a mystery.
And once you found Azcanta, you get Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin. It taps for a blue mana. Everyone knows that's busted. Then
already
has an activated ability.
Yeah.
2 and a blue, tap. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a non-creature, non-land card from among them into your hand and the rest in the bottom in any order. So this card finds artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, instants, sorceries.
Ah, very good.
Tribal. Yes.
Those are always one of those other things. It also finds world enchantments.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So it finds a wide range of cards. It's really hard to miss with the activation. And in control mirrors, I actually think there's maybe no card I would rather have in play. This card just single-handedly wins control mirrors. It's good in combo decks to try to grind against control decks. As if you're like a combo control deck, this is one of the best cards you can have. It's reasonable, even reasonable in the aggro matchup, because even just it has the secret mode of even if you never activate it, it's just a ramp spell in blue. Like you just get to play this for 2 mana, and then on like turn 5 or 6, you're up a land.
You're like, now I'm at 6 mana.
And that's often really, really important for the decks trying to stabilize. Like often the 1 mana can be a huge deal, can be the difference between stabilizing and being dead.
You get to like cast your Terminus before they expect you to be able to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It seems like the mana investment to effect is way out of whack.
Yeah, like
Like as in
hot.
too good?
Too good.
It's a real good card.
the advantage
maybe
you
not
get
too.
over the course of like 3 turns from this card is just crazy. And
Yeah,
it's the condition's also super easy to flip. Like even on the front side, just getting the advantage of like a better scry each turn. Like filling your bin is really good in this format.
Yeah, especially with Delve.
Powers Delve. You don't necessarily want to do that before this flips, but it still gives you that option, and then just fills your bin for if you have flashback cards, Snapcaster Mage, Torrential Hulk.
Yeah, Graveyard is very, very valuable
et cetera.
format. All right, let's introduce today's theme. Today, actually, as sort of an aside first, what I'm really excited about is we are fast approaching or kind of close to 6 months of North 100. Like an entire half a year already. So it gets kind of weird. Technically, episode 26 would be half the number of years or half the number of weeks in a year. But there's like Christmas and Desert Bus, and so we're kind of there and we're kind of not there. And anyways, that's amazing. And thank you so much to everyone who watches, because the fact that you care enough to keep watching this is amazing, and it motivates us to keep doing it. So thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you everyone here for sticking around with us, and to Mysterious G behind the mic in the corner for letting us do this.
That's my name.
Yeah.
The voice in the shadows.
So today we have prepared for you a spring of 2018 Q&A episode where we asked you for your Qs, and we are now preparing our As. And there is a great idea today from Olivier, I hope I pronounced that right, who suggested that instead of the best card you're not playing, how about the worst card you have played, or the worst card you've won with, or
are playing currently.
yeah, just a little bit of a twist on that. So I like that a lot. And to completely change the format, Graham is actually going to be the question asker.
Yes, the voice on the winds all of a sudden is much more important.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I'm just looking for any relevant magic card with the word voice in there.
Voice
Of
of
resurgence.
Voice of resurgence.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh no,
so
here we
voice
go.
of
Here we
Voice
go.
of all.
Yeah, voice of all.
That's
pretty
That's
good
me.
too.
actually, yeah, that's Graham.
Alternately, voices from the void.
Yeah, no, that's also
If
good.
That
if
one's
you're-
good
It's a
too.
Q&A from the internet.
Seems a lot more like Twitter.
So are you starting with the worst card you are playing? Or?
So the way we'd like to format it, we have the section called questions.
Yeah.
There's a question at the top. The person who asked it and then a Q for who is going to tell the worst card between questions.
I see.
Yeah.
Exciting.
All right. So, in that case, the first question is, when will you do a deck tech?
All right. We had a lot.
This was asked by many people, which is why I didn't call anyone specifically.
Yeah. YouTube comments, Twitters. This is probably one of the most common things we've done, and I think the best answer we can come up with is we don't think it'd make for a good TV.
Yeah, there's too many of us, too many cooks.
I think the other problem is that, like, once we set a precedent for doing deck techs, we would get inundated with people's brews.
Like
I mean,
Deck
we already
Doctor,
get a lot of feedback, which is great. But if we started doing episodes about deck techs, we would get avalanched with people's lists being like, what cards am I playing? What cards am I not playing? And that would be an entire other job.
It's not necessarily just from a... I wasn't planning on chiming in for the actual answers, but as from the producer standpoint, it's not entirely out of the question that we could look at doing deck tech content for Highlander.
Yeah.
But I don't think it works well as an episode of the pod.
Of four people here.
Four of
Probably
us is too many.
a separate thing.
Liam had a great workaround, which was actually our build a deck around this theme, like the 3 cards. So we've tried to make little mini games about it. We've tried to find ways to sort of approach it the same way.
If you did a standalone short with 2 people,
Oh, totally.
and maybe that's theme, I think that would be good TV.
Yeah, like a little mini content or like a Brewers Challenge head-to-head. We've tried to workshop it, but
Because then you could edit it and you could have like close-ups of all the cards and stuff like that. And
you know who does great deck techs are sort of like SCG, where they present you can read a 100-card list, they go through their defense, they go through like that sort of very formatted. It makes like for a really great written article.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
I think that's that.
Yeah.
All right, so then, Jeremy, what's the worst card you are playing?
All right, so I've played too many bad cards to choose one. So I'm gonna change the format a little to the best card I've won a tournament with.
Ooh, bold.
You mean the worst card you've won a tournament?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. I can't wait to see what this is.
I have won a tournament with
Okay.
Seed Time in my deck. And Seed Time is an instant with insane art. It's 1 and a green.
Right.
Play Seed Time only during your turn.
That doesn't sound the worst.
And it says take an extra turn after
sounds
this
great.
one.
Okay.
There's no stoppage there. It keeps going.
Oh.
If an opponent has played a blue spell this turn.
Oh.
So it's straight dead in a lot of matchups. If your opponent's not playing blue, you're just never casting the spell. I wasn't playing Painter Servant in my deck, so I could never force them to play blue spells.
That's so spicy.
No, it's not.
No. You play it against the red deck with Painter Servant. They bolt you. You time walk.
So I even cast it in the tournament I won. All right, first I'm going to give an aside and let Liam explain how I ended up playing this card.
So Jer trusts me too much.
Yes.
Did you try and sabotage him?
No. I made his deck better. So we often deck build together at one of the questions we got asked on Twitter, by the way, is how big is the table you build decks at? And the answer to that in this case was a large table. So Jared and I are building his deck. We're like putting this green-white deck together, and we're like sorting through his piles of cards, and I'm like, haha, show him Seed Time, and he's like, whatever. There's no way I'm gonna play that card. And I just put it in his deck. After we were like done most of the cuts, made him play 101 cards with Seed Time as the 101st card, and he won the tournament comfortably.
101 card of Seed Time.
Oh yeah. Like
So not only
we laboriously worked on like making this deck perfect, and then I put Seed Time in it.
No.
It was great. He won the tournament.
How did you feel when you drew it for the first time?
I was surprised. Thankfully, when I drew it, I just like had the game locked up and like didn't need half the cards in my hand anyways.
You know what you're describing? You're describing like a flawless sundae made with like care and love with like ice cream and sauces and whipped cream, and you just put a single peppercorn on top.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like
A little bit of spice.
No, just a little crunchy,
Muy picante.
hard to bite down on.
Yeah.
Spicy.
Spicy.
And so
man.
I actually got to play this card in the tournament. I was playing in the 2-0 bracket up at table 1, and I was playing against Blue Moon. And thankfully Blue Moon has blue spells in it.
Just one or two.
Yeah, the green-white deck is pretty good at getting on board ahead of Blue Moon, so you can often force them to tap out. So I had a few creatures in play already. I think I had a Fleecemane Lion and a Loxodon Smiter. There's nothing sweeter than just like jamming a Loxodon Smiter into open blue mana and being
If you're wondering why Green-White is good against Blue Moon, by the way, look no further than this game.
Then
Yeah.
seed time.
No.
So I have-
Loxodon Spider and Land.
I have like 7 power in play.
Okay.
And I go to attack. I go to attack, and my opponent plays Vendilion Clique and targets me. And my hand is like Elspeth Knight Errant, Jite, and
Seed
a
time.
land or something.
Oh.
And so my opponent's like,
No.
oh, take the Jite, put it on the bottom. I draw Seed Time
way!
off the click draw card. And so they block my Fleecemane Lion, take 4. And then I have enough mana in play to play Elspeth and Seed Time. And then they're just dead.
My brain is melting.
So spicy.
So we built the perfect deck. That's the moral of this story. This card sucks, but it's perfect.
Yeah,
The deck was
thankfully
so
I didn't.
good that not even a terrible single like this could hold it back.
Yeah,
this
I
card's
didn't draw very often. That was probably key to winning that tournament. But I did cast it once. It was the nut.
Hold on, did you read the flavor text on this card? The hippo grows wings to fight the condor. Nantuko teaching.
That's how Feldegriffs happen.
Yeah.
No, that's when a hippo and a condor.
No.
No, it's a hippo that grew wings to fight the condor. It's a
Protection
Feldegriff.
from
The
condors.
more
You're-
you know.
Yeah.
Your necklace is interfering.
Oh
with
my
your
goodness.
microphone. Next
How
question
dare you?
from the Wonder Doc is how good versus versatile does a card have to be?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So for me, the answer is obviously versatility above all, because I built the 5-color Charms deck. But the real answer is a card has to be pretty good at what it's doing to only do one thing. A great example of this is like we're always like a red deck is almost always going to play Lightning Bolt because 1 mana for 3 damage is great. But actually, Lightning Strike and Incinerate and all the 1 mana, 1 and 1 red
Yeah,
for
2
3
mana, yeah.
damage. Those cards are starting to get cut from a lot of decks. Like Mono Red obviously still plays
Really?
them. Well, like Blue Moon doesn't play them anymore. Like Jeskai doesn't play those cards as removal spells because they're just too narrow. They're not good enough. But a card that's come out recently is a Braid. And a Braid is great because a Braid has 2 modes. And the first mode is basically Lightning Strike and only hit creatures. But then it has this other secondary effect, which is really powerful. And so combined, this card's versatile
Yeah, it's
enough.
destroy target artifact.
So like your card has to be really good, honestly, before you need to.
I think a good way to look at this, and we touched on it a lot when we looked at our metagame discussion the other time, is what is your deck trying to do and what matchups are you expecting? If you have a very linear strategy, you're looking for the most powerful effect possibly because you just need to win as quickly as possible. You don't need answers. You just need a card that does the thing as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
I mean-
if you're a reactive deck, however, you need to. It's hard to sort of predict what you need answers to. So Braid is great. It answers creatures and it answers artifacts. It's very rarely going to be dead. Go ahead, Alex.
I
Sorry.
was going to say, I suppose the counterpoint to the versatility is in a lot of synergy-based decks, you're playing hyper-narrow do-one-thing cards that don't have alternate uses. Like, I don't know, is Doomsday a good example of that?
Well, Doomsday is just a combo card. It's not.
It's true, but
Yeah.
like in decks like that, surely there's cards that don't really do anything outside of the combo. Like
That's sort of what Serge was getting at. Is if you're a proactive deck, like Doomsday is a proactive combo deck. Like they're not trying to react to what you're doing. They're just trying to set up their combo as fast as possible. So they're not playing many versatile cards. They're just playing cards that help them set up their combo. Whereas if you're playing like a control deck or a mid-range deck, you're going to need some answer cards, and then you have to decide how efficient versus how versatile you want your answer cards to be. And usually you need a mixture of both. Like you need some like discard cards or counter spells or like Vindicate type effects that can just like deal with anything that comes up.
Vindicate in itself like represents versatility because it blows up anything.
But it's also expensive, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is expensive.
3
but
mana
it
sorceries.
does blow up anything.
Expensive, yeah. Well, and that's sort of what I was getting at. Like those things are very versatile, whereas like Fatal Push is like, or Swords to Plowshares is like super good, super efficient, and like if your opponent has a Goblin Guide, which card would you rather have? Swords to Plowshares or Vindicate?
Yeah.
Swords to
Swords.
Plowshares.
Yeah, if you have Vindicate, you're going to take 6 before you kill it, right?
Yeah.
But if you're playing against a deck with both like Tarmogoyf and Jace the Mind Sculptor, you 50% of the time your Swords to Plowshares isn't going to do anything, whereas 100% of the time your Vindicate's going to blow up whichever one they have.
So I suppose if we had to provide an answer to the Wonder Doc as asked, is it depends on your deck?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's really is the best answer.
Yeah.
And usually err to the side of like good cards as opposed to versatile cards.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah, I think the one exception being if you're a control deck, you maybe want a little bit more versatility, but by and large, I agree with Jeremy.
Yeah, because I suppose like having singles that are like too diverse means that they're not that great.
It's not adding to your strategy. It's not helping you win.
And you can also end up getting stuck with like a bunch of them in hand.
Yeah.
And then you just eventually when you start casting them, you're just too slow.
Or you can also run into problems like, let's say you have a bunch of very linear removal spells in your hand and you play against a deck that doesn't have many targets. All of a sudden, you just have hands with 3 or 4 deck cards. So,
Just no bueno.
So, Serge,
Hi.
what's the worst card you're playing?
So we've had a couple of community events in Victoria that have resulted in some real dumb cards making their ways into my deck, and I want to talk specifically about the month of Masticore.
I'm sorry, what?
the Masticore
and
month.
the Wumpus Challenge.
Oh no.
So I think it might have been March Masticore or something ridiculous like that. Basically, Ben in our community put out a bounty that if you could win a Monday night tournament with any card with the subtype Masticore in it, he put like a fetch land or something on it. And similarly, there was another time where it was a month-long Wumpus Challenge. Do you know how many Wumpai there are?
4.
Yeah, they're all pretty janky. There's like Shivan Wumpus, Hunted Wumpus, a Thrashing Wumpus.
Yep.
And what's the last one?
There's a black one, I think.
I only
That's
see
thrashing.
3.
Only Tree Wumpai?
I thought there were only 3. The
Hunted
General
Shivan, and Thrashing.
Yeah.
Is Thrashing the black one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thrashing is one that has Pestilence.
That card's just actively good.
But it kills itself after 3.
So?
Well, whatever. So,
No, it
what?
doesn't. You just hold priority in
I was
response.
gonna say so does Pestilence.
Yeah, well,
You can activate it like 10 times.
I digress. So, I have made some deck brewing mistakes by deciding to try and chase a bounty, and spoilers, I didn't win. Sort of the strategy when you're taking one of these challenges to make a really good 99 card deck and hopefully just don't draw your other card.
Okay, so
Or have your friend sneak it into your deck and just play 101.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
the Wumpuses seem incredibly bad.
Okay.
The Masticores, there's like what 3 or 4 of them?
Yeah.
They're all like not too bad.
You see
Masticores are
that at
tough.
the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice unless you discard a card?
Sure.
Sometimes that's good.
Sometimes that's an advantage.
Yeah, like there's the Molten Masticore is pretty good, and there's also a 5/3 Masticore, Razormane Masticore,
Like,
or this one's a
didn't-
5/5.
Yeah.
Didn't every one of these see constructed play at one point?
Not really.
I
Yeah.
a little bit.
Original Masticore
it's
saw a
tough.
ton of play.
Yeah, that's maybe that's the one I was thinking of.
Whoa, that's very Highlander
That is
appropriate.
that is a handsome boy.
Yeah, yeah.
There are 3 different World Championship printings of Masticore because it featured in 3 different decks.
I mean, it has
No, 2. Why is there 2 different?
Is this
It doesn't
the-
matter. 2.
One was a sideboard card.
So Masticores have a lot of abilities. Like, don't get me wrong, it's tough in Highlander sometimes. Like even in my workshop decks where I'm trying to cheat out something, I'll play a Juggernaut over a Masticore. Because your cards do so much in this format. The cost of having to pitch it is up there. I don't know. Any other questions on my flirtations with Masticore and Wumpai?
No,
pretty-
in fact, I
pretty
would
rare
actively
cards.
not like to know more if you're going to describe them as flirtation.
Unsubscribe Masticore facts.
Thank you for subscribing to Masticore Facts.
Oh,
Next question from Shark Fists.
hey Max.
When is it correct to run fewer than all 10 points?
Ooh.
More often than
Yeah.
you'd think.
This,
Yeah.
is a
A lot.
this is a really good question.
I think like the temptation is to like bend yourself into a pretzel to try and cram in 10 points, but sometimes like a spread that doesn't hit 10 is better for the deck.
But all the best cards are pointed. Shouldn't I just try and jam them all in?
One thing you have to think about is that the pointed cards are on the points list for their best case scenarios. And the best case scenario doesn't always involve the deck you're playing. Like, I think Black Lotus is the best example. Maybe Flash is the best example.
Yeah, Flash is probably really good.
So
example.
Flash is like tied for the most pointed card on the points list.
Now, what does Flash do?
It's 1 and a blue for an instant. It lets you put a creature from your hand into play as though it were just played. Then you have to pay its casting cost reduced by 2 colorless. If you can't, the creature dies. And so this card is just used in combination with Hulk for the most part. A few people have started using it to do some other things, but predominantly with Flash Hulk. And the reason it's so heavily pointed is just because of its interaction with Hulk. If you try to use Flash, like, fairly, like, you're just trying to, like, get some cool death triggers.
Fair
or
Flash.
Like,
You know, I just want to flash in my Ashen Rider.
yeah, or, like,
That's kind of hot.
I once lost a bet to another local player where I had to, my points had to be Flash and Birthing Pod. So I was playing, like, this fair Flash pod deck, and I once flashed in an Imperial Recruiter to go get a Kiki Jiki to win on the next turn.
That's hot.
But
So-
not good.
No, like that's not an inherently unfair play. It's not like I used the 7-point card to its fullest extent. Or Black Lotus is another good example because of its use in the Storm decks. It's not like if you're using it like I was using it in my green red ramp deck that I played on the
That
stream.
hurt. I was on the other side of that.
It's still good, but like Soul Ring probably would have been better. And it's only 3 points.
but not as spicy.
No, and like that's why I did it. You know,
Yeah.
It's exciting. Don't always get to Lotus out of Garrick Wildspeaker. But
I think that this question comes up a lot for for people who don't necessarily own all of the super high value pointed cards, and then there's this temptation to throw in the more like maybe the ones you do own. So I know recently I've been playing like either aggressive decks or like mid-range decks, and I've been really tempted to play. I don't own any Moxen, but I have a Mana Crypt,
Yeah.
and I've been really tempted to play Mana Crypt because I have these extra points and I feel kind of obligated to try and get it in. And it's not always right? Like it just like wasn't necessarily correct for the deck, or my deck was going a little longer than Mana Crypt could really support. And it probably would have just been better to not use those 2 points, to just leave them.
One of my favorite stories in the community regarding points is when Mac, our resident Goblin King, went on a tear with 0-point goblins.
Yep.
He just kept winning over and over and over with not a single point in his goblin deck. And when the community started trying to think about pointing random goblins to try and do something about the deck,
One button clanger to 6.
you're just like point goblin guide, cards OP, and you're just like, no, like that's not the problem. And so
Lightning bolt.
yeah, no, exactly. You know, like let's point recruiter. And you're like, no, just change your deck.
I mean,
Put in play Pyroclasm. Come on.
did
play
play
a
Recruiter for a
Kitchen
while.
Finks.
Yeah.
Play
One
a
time.
wall.
So in conclusion, make your deck the best it can be, the best version it has to be, and that doesn't necessarily always mean jam the points in.
Use
Yeah.
points as a garnish.
Yeah, and so just to go over a few of the more common ones, like the best, most successful red decks in the past year have only been playing 5 points. They've been playing Mox Ruby and Strip Mine. They haven't been playing Sol Ring. They haven't been playing Mana Crypt. They haven't been playing Black Lotus. A bunch of those people have access to it. They're not playing it. They think the best possible spread you can play is 5 points. For a long time, the best white weenie spread was 9 points, and some people tried to play Enlightened Tutor to fill a 10th point, but eventually decided it was better to not have it in the deck. Like, it's just not worthwhile. Like, Steel Shaper's Gift is just better in that deck. It gets it to your hand. You're not down a card.
True.
Yeah. Graham?
Yeah, so what's then the worst card that Alex is playing?
So I've been tinkering with Naya Humans a lot recently.
Okay.
And I think that deck's actually pretty hot.
Yeah.
Like I've sort of honed it down. I actually went really, really greedy and made a 5-color Humans version. And I actually sleeved it up, and then I looked at it and was like, this is the greediest deck I have ever made in my life.
Ah, 5-color greed pile, I see.
Like, this is insane. And I was like, I looked at the color breakdown and was like, if I cut 2 colors from this, it'll actually be a better deck.
Yeah.
Because I can play more basics, I'm going to be able to hit my colors more
And you can
consistently.
put this mysterious 100th
I
card
can
in.
put this mysterious 100th card in,
Yeah.
which I've always wanted to play. And I was like, oh, this fine young man is a 2-drop that's a human.
Okay.
Let's give it a try. Well, it's Varchild's War Riders from...
Wait, is this the Alliances card we were
Yeah,
talking about the
this
other
is
day?
the one that makes the 1/1s.
No way! Are you trying it?
I tried it.
I'm so excited, Alex!
I have got to explain to you this card. Okay, so 1 and a red gets you a 3/4
That sounds amazing.
Oh, I'm already
with
in.
Trample and Rampage 1.
This is basically better than Goyf.
Rampage 1 is a weird ability that isn't printed on anything. Well, it's old. It states that for every creature blocking this creature beyond the first, it gets +1/+1. Now here's the problem with the card. Cumulative upkeep.
Yeah.
Put a survivor token into play under target opponent's control. Treat this token as a 1/1 red creature. So you play this out. On your upkeep, you give them a 1/1.
A survivor.
A
Then you trample over the survivor.
Yeah, trample over the survivor. Next turn, you give them 2.
Then you trample over both the survivors.
Turn after you give them 3.
They're all dying.
Right? It's like they can't block this thing.
There's
It's got
no
rampage.
downside.
It's like Mulan, but with the sad ending.
Yeah, like this thing's unbeatable and like devastating, right? That's Magical Christmas Land. Until you realize you're playing this in an aggro deck and you are giving them stuff to block all your other creatures with.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh.
I mean, give it a try. Let's see what happens.
Maybe we need to play Trample Tribal.
Maybe.
Yeah?
Like, this card might be okay. I might try it again in a moment of weakness.
Like, you get it out there on turn 1, like you ramp it out or
Like,
something
turn
like
1,
that.
this is pretty stupid. Also, I do want to point out, you may choose to not pay the cumulative upkeep and then just let this thing die.
Don't pay the cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just need to get Solemnity into this deck.
Whoa.
That doesn't sound good. Don't
Don't
do that.
do that. That's not a combo.
That's not the direction you want to
All
go.
right.
Can I interest you in a Hex Parasite?
There you go.
That's actually insane.
Satyr Rambler is a 2/1 for 2 with trample.
Have you been Theros flashback drafting?
Yeah, I have been. Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice.
Next question
Yeah.
from Richard. What was your first deck in the format?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Jer, start us off.
My first deck was Blue-White Control, much to the surprise of everyone. I
Really?
still play that deck, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I was playing like... That's actually been my first deck in like basically every format. In Standard, I played like my first Standard deck was like a terrible Sun Titan control deck. I played Blue-White Control in Modern. My first Legacy deck was Stoneblade. All right, not my first Vintage deck, but also my first Canadian Highlander deck.
Sick. So I got into Magic playing Standard, as one does, in around, I got back into Magic around Zendikar era. And I wasn't having a lot of fun in Standard, and there was one weekend where I played Legacy for the first time, and I sleeved up Counter Slivers, and I won a Legacy event.
Right.
And in that weekend, I went to my first ever Highlander event, and I took a Gave of the
Gave?
Spores. Is it Gave or Gave?
Gave? I don't know.
Whatever.
Ghave.
Yes.
Gave.
Abzan of the Spores. EDH deck, and I took a couple of like Ravduels that I had, and I put them in there, and I think I had like 1 or 2 fetch lands because it was Zendikar and they were around, and I just played this deck, and I ended up going 2-0-1. Like, I was undefeated, so I ended up playing in the finals because we didn't have as much attendance back then, and you could still do that, and I lost in the finals. So in my first ever week playing Eternal formats, that's the words, I'm using the words correctly, I won a Legacy tournament and then finaled with a Highlander tournament. I was like, well, I'm out of Standard forever. So yeah, to answer the question as asked, my first ever deck was actually an EDH transfer, and it was sweet, and I haven't done as well ever since.
Been chasing that same high ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played the worst Goblin deck in the world. I don't remember much about what was in the list, but I'm pretty sure it had like no Lords, no Tutors. It was playing stuff like Mud Button Clanger
That card's great.
and like
I mean, that card's actually playable.
there was a bunch of other stuff.
So like,
Well,
was it
not
mono
even.
red goblins or which
It
goblins?
was mono red goblins.
Sick.
But it was just like a bunch of like weird, dirtily random cards that I
Why
had.
goblins?
Over points.
points?
Yeah, were you over points?
I'm pretty sure I didn't have points.
Okay, you didn't borrow this deck then.
No, this was a
okay.
deck I threw together myself. I was like,
Sick.
There's
I
a
was like-
tragic tale of someone coming to play Highlander for the first
no.
time and getting lent a Goblin's deck that was over points.
oh dear.
Brutal.
It was
Yeah.
pretty rough. That deck's hard to put over points.
Yeah, it was just like a bunch of cards of about this quality,
Nice.
and I just got demolished.
Yeah?
Like, it was the kind of thing where I went like basic mountain Mons Goblin Raiders, and they're just like fetch into an underground sea, like
Thoughtseize
or something like that. And I was like, I see. I've wandered into the arena of despair.
I mean, they were taking 2 off that Thoughtseize. That's probably more
3,
damage than
yeah.
any of your cards would have done.
God, they're doing work for me.
Like if they Thoughtseize Mud Button
Yeah.
Clanger, you're up.
Yeah.
That's good for you.
Yeah, I've since built way better Goblin decks.
Oh, yeah.
Because that list is sweet. It's sadly not in the format these days.
Goblins? Like you could play it.
It'll be
Yeah.
around.
It's just like most of the mono red players who are around right now prefer playing mono red, but they like a bunch of them are like, yeah, Goblins is definitely reasonable as well. Just like playing mono red more.
Fair.
Liam.
So my answer's kind of two-parted because the first time I came, I think I've told this story on the show before, was like I arrived in Victoria, had like moved into my apartment, didn't have any stuff other than the things I had brought from the East Coast, so I was like sleeping on the floor. Like went to YJ on a Sunday, got told about this Highlander format, woke up the next Monday morning, rolled over from the floor, and like was peering into my box of Magic cards that had come with me, and constructed this like just totally awful bug infect deck with like 4 fetch lands and 2 Ravnica duels because they were the ones I had.
Sick. Yeah.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, that deck was bad. Didn't do super well. So the first real deck I played, because I played that for like a couple of tournaments before realizing like, no, I didn't own a Skitherix. That was
Now it's worth mentioning
rich for my blood.
that Infect is not bad in our
no,
format.
no. And in fact, the deck isn't bad, but it was the construction of the deck
Yeah,
that
okay.
I had that was bad. That deck's really one that can't afford to be taking 2 for all of its lands and all that kind of stuff. Like you need to be pretty streamlined. And the first real deck I built after I realized that I was going to be playing this format for a while was High Tide. I built
sick.
Yeah, I built High Tide and played that for.
I think
maybe
this
a month.
says a lot about our personalities. So first deck we have control, we have like weird token go wide strategy,
Aggro.
get them, and combo.
Yeah, I wanted to think a lot more than my opponents.
Are you implying that the other decks don't require
What's your
thinking?
favorite high tide art?
The Merfolk.
Good. I think.
Well, okay, that's not true. I like the comic book promo.
Right. You like the IDW one?
Yeah, the
Dak
Dak
Fade
Fade one.
one.
That one's insane.
I meant
this one's so good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I meant Fallen Empires high tide.
Yeah, I like the Merfolk, but I like this one the most. And I'm not implying that other decks don't require thought. I'm just implying that when you're playing High Tide, you have more decisions to make than your opponent does usually, or at least
Almost always.
you have
Pardon me?
you have more options than they do.
This is maybe a dumb question, but is there like a mostly black High Tide deck using Bubbling Muck?
Probably not.
And you can play that creature that doubles all your black sources too to
Yeah,
store
like
it, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Well, I
like,
guess the reason
Gas.
it works in
Gas.
blue is because you have all the untappers, right?
yeah, that's the issue. Is that like you can't
Like
really
blue has everything. Blue has the high tide, the draw sevens, the card selection,
And the tutors.
and the tutors.
Well, you splash black for the tutors,
And
but
untappers.
like you could maybe play black splash blue, but it would be like a pretty heavy splash awkwardly, and you'd probably end up wanting like not as much blue mana as black mana, but you'd probably end up wanting half and half. I have been wanting to use Bubbling Muck to cast Dragonstorm in the last 6 hours. I've been thinking about
This is a
Dragonstorm
fresh
a
idea.
lot recently.
Okay, so what about if you're splashing black in the High Tide deck?
Okay.
What if you also run Urborg?
And then Bubbling
Because
Muck.
then Bubbling Muck and High Tide means all your lands tap for 3.
Well,
Yes.
Urborg would only tap for 2. Because it's not an island.
No, it is each
Well,
land
Urborg-
is a swamp
Urborg's not an
in
island.
addition.
Yeah, all
no,
you're saying is that
Urborg would.
Urborg itself wouldn't.
Urborg itself
Yeah.
would, but all your islands would tap for blue, blue, black.
It does require you to find exactly Urborg in order to turn on your Bubbling
I
Muck.
didn't say it was good.
All right.
Live the dream,
You know
Liam.
what, Graham?
But-
Trinket
You're a
Mage
man after my own
Expedition
heart. I
map.
can, yeah. All right, I can already.
Well, this
feel-
actually brings us neatly to it's now your turn to tell us what the worst card you are playing is.
Yeah. So speaking of comboing, in my pursuit of literally infiniting everyone,
Yeah.
I've played some pretty bad combo cards in my day,
Go on.
and So we all know like sneak attack through the breach. Those cards are pretty powerful. Show and tell. That card's great.
Spicy.
Really good. Channel, powerful card. Stronghold Gambit, not so good. This card's less powerful. So Stronghold Gambit is a sorcery for one in a red that says, excuse me a moment, each player chooses a card in his or her hand. Then each player reveals his or her chosen card. The owner of the creature card revealed this way with the lowest converted mana cost
Puts it into
put
play.
that card into play. If they're tied, you don't do anything. Or they both go into play, sorry.
Yeah.
So this is bold. So show and tell, you try and put a larger creature into play. What's your thinking with Stronghold Gambit?
They don't have a creature.
Yeah, you just gotta hope they don't have a creature. Like occasionally you'd have the Gitaxian Probe to know that casting this was wrong, but a lot of the time you just gotta stare them down, look them in the eye and say you don't have it.
There is a ruling, one of the official rulings is you don't have to choose a creature card, but choosing a non-creature does nothing except maybe bluff your opponent. That's the official rule.
Wow.
Fascinating. So this card's, I'm not gonna say it's not good, but it's yet to be good for me.
It's basically show and tell too.
I'm just trying to think of any sort of undercosted.
Black-Red Reanimator is where you want to play this card so that you can hand attack their creatures out of their hand, then Stronghold Gambit, then you Gristlebrand them. Trust me, I've gone through the permutations. Here's what happens in practice. You draw the Stronghold Gambit, you're like, great, you Thoughtseize them, they have 3 creatures and you can't do it. Then maybe you're like, all right, I'll work through them all. You Thoughtseize them again. You Cabal Therapy another creature. You Hymn to Turok, they discard the 3rd creature. Then you triumphantly cast your Stronghold Gambit and they drew another creature and you lose. That's been my experience.
Bad.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
I have also had it happen where I went to go put a Gristlebrand into play, and I thought they didn't have anything, and they got to put a Consecrated Sphinx into play for free. I was like playing against a control deck. I was like, they don't have any creatures. I'm just gonna jam this on turn 2, and I might just win the game. And then I lost the game. It was great.
They had a turn 2 Sphinx.
This is the tale of a great card. 1 in a red, you discard a card, your opponent puts Consecrated Sphinx into play.
Sounds
Yeah, I thought about playing this card in Tin Fins. And then I stopped thinking about playing this card in Tin Fins.
2 mana, be sad.
You don't actually discard it. It just goes back into your hand.
No, the Stronghold
Stronghold
Gambit goes to the
Gambit.
graveyard.
Pay 2 mana,
Because you
lose a
cast
card
it.
from your hand, they get swings.
pitch this card.
All right, I think we got time for one more.
Oh
right,
boy.
cool.
I've played better cards.
Yep.
So what's your favorite world enchantment? No, that's not the question.
Concordant Crossroads?
Can you
The
name
Abyss.
more than one? Yeah, I was going to say the Abyss. Yeah.
There are
No.
26.
I probably could name another one if I really had to, but I don't really have to. So
All right,
it's
what's
No,
fine.
you don't. Okay, Isaac asked mono white mid range.
Excellent. This is also maybe a story I get to
this on
explain.
here.
So speaking of large tables and building decks from earlier in the show, this was actually at a different table, even larger than the last.
True.
And Jeremy and I are doing what we usually do pre-Highlander. We're brooding over this table, trying to assess the metagame, figure out the perfect deck to play.
Yeah.
We're like, mono red's pretty good. There's all these aggressive decks, not that many control decks, bunch of mid-range. You know what they can't beat? Sun Titan and Wrath of God. And so we start putting together this mono white mid-range deck, and I'm like, this deck is great. It's going to be so good. And Jared's initially into it. He's
I
like,
was so young.
this is awesome. This
So
is
stupid.
this is going to be really good. So we put the deck together. Jared's all excited. We get in the car. We drive down to Yellow Jacket. We sit down for round 1. I don't even remember what I was playing at this event, by the way. It's not important. And Jared plays round 1 and loses in 15 minutes. And it looks so sullen.
So how did piloting mono white mid range go?
I've entirely blocked it from my memory.
I'll fill in the gaps here. So basically what happened is that in the first game, we had not constructed the mana base of this mono white deck properly, which sounds challenging to do.
It should just be all plains. Like, how hard is it to make?
Well, yeah, it's not what lands, it's the number of those lands. And
Yeah.
we had not put enough lands in this deck.
no.
We had also not really compensated for that by putting more ramp in the deck. Like, the updated builds of mono white mid-range would be better, but I don't even think we played Grim Monolith in this deck. It was not good. We were all in on the creatures. So what happened in round 1 was that Jared cast 3 spells, and his opponent countered all 3 of those spells, and then he died. And then in game 2, he didn't cast any spells because he kept a 2-lander and never saw a 3rd land.
Sounds about right. I don't really remember.
No, I was nearby. Trust me, I remember the screaming.
Wait, did you tilt off an entire archetype?
Oh,
Did you not understand that was the joke this whole time?
Well, I thought you just refused to ever play it. I didn't know you tried it and it went so poorly.
I played it and it went so badly. I swore never to play it again.
Not only did he play, he played 2 rounds. After this first round, he came back for a second round, and then conceded and dropped.
I've never 0-1 dropped.
All right, Alex.
Can we call this archetype spilt milk? Because
Why?
there's no sense crying over it.
But there is sense crying over it. It's either
it's
funny or
hot
bad.
garbage.
One of the two.
Oh,
Both these things cause tears.
Oh, that's so good, Alex.
It's also totally non-descriptive. That's it. I've had it.
Calcium.deck.
Oh my god, that was really fun.
And it's worth noting. I mean, fair enough. Jared's not a huge fan of this deck. Not unreasonable. This deck actually is like a little playable, right? Like Chris Ireland, friend of a bunch of us on the show. He's brought mono white a bunch of times, and the deck is like constructed very differently from the way that Jared and I built it over the large table cauldron. And like I've played against him playing control decks 2 times now, and in both those occasions, he's put Emeria the Sky Rune into play and had it online, and I'm like sitting there staring at my handful of one for one removal, just like knowing I'm gonna lose. And then the other time, like he had it and he was like looping an Iona and just like guessing which color removal spell I had this time, and just like finally got me in the lock. Like he would be like black, and I had a bounce spell, and then
I had asked Twitter what the next deck I should make was, and they had suggested green-blue Time Walk with Fast Bond.
Jared played that on Monday.
But maybe I'm supposed to go mono-white mid-range
with Fast Bond.
Splashing green for Fast Bond.
That actually sounds good. I'm not gonna lie, because you need ramp in that deck pretty badly, and like Fast Bond's a real good ramp card.
So, what do you think about Big Selesnya?
I guess?
No comment.
Interesting.
It's probably fine.
So I think we do actually have time for the last question.
Okay.
Which is from Mario. What is your favorite thing about Highlander that you can't get in other formats?
Have you watched the past however long this podcast has been?
Nowhere else do you get to play Big White and then swear never to play Big White again.
Yep. In no other constructed format do you get to play the cards that just barely didn't make the cut in Vintage and Legacy, but are still super duper sweet. I mean, this is the format where like Shriekmaw and Muldrifter.
It's
are
Coiling
playable.
Oracle,
Coiling
the form
Oracle.
rat.
Yeah, it's just like all these cards that are amazing.
Yeah.
But because of the inherent limitations of 60-card constructed formats, they just don't see play because there's a card that's just a little bit better, but you know.
You know all that joy you get when you're drafting your friend's cube and they have all those sweet cards? Highlander.
What if you could curate that into the perfect... You're playing a perfect cube draft pool.
Yeah.
How sweet is that?
Speaking of perfect cube draft pools, Jared and I drafted a nice one this morning in Legacy Cube.
We had
but that's a different
an
story.
insane deck.
I think the other thing that's really nice about Highlander, unlike other formats, and this is not to dish on other formats, but it's really easy to pivot between a bunch of different ideas that you might have. Like for me, I mean, I like playing combo decks, but I really like playing all kinds of decks, to be honest, right? Like I like playing aggro, I like playing tempo, I like playing control. I don't really like playing Prison. I won't lie. I did play Enduring and Ideal for a little while.
Prison's just so much fun.
But in other formats, you kind of can't do that, right? It's preventative, or sometimes the metagame's just not
Meta
right.
just doesn't allow it.
Yeah,
totally.
you just can't do it. And in Highlander, you can play what you want to in terms of archetype, which is great. I think that's really nice, and I think that scratches an itch for me that no other Magic format really does.
Sweet. Well, that is it for your cues today. We definitely had a lot more questions that we couldn't get to. We sort of picked ones that were very, very, very common, or that we thought were sort of broad enough that we could, you know, have a little bit of discussion around. But definitely thank you everybody who responded, and there were a lot of you. Apparently there's a couple of questions about this. So let us go to our usual closing segment, Powerful Magic.
Disclaimer, this is not actually a Highlander story. However,
Gasp!
It's close enough.
All right.
This was at GP Vegas during a Chaos draft,
Okay.
which is basically Highlander Limited.
Sure.
And this is, I mean, it's another bad beat story.
Was this the Chaos sealed?
Was it Chaos Sealed?
I think if it's the event that
You're right. It was Chaos Sealed. So I get paired up against an opponent. Like I can't remember what I opened. I think I got mono red. I think I always force mono red in Chaos because it always works.
Sure.
Sort of.
Fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't this a bad beat story?
Yeah, it is. It's a very bad beat story. So I set it down against my opponent.
Yeah.
And he's like a very soft-spoken young man. And we start playing, and he's got like some artifacts and some blue spells. And he plays out a Tumble Magnet, which is a Mirrodin artifact. It's
3 mana,
it's
right?
3 mana. It comes in with 3 charge counters. You tap and remove it. Remove a counter to tap. I think it's an artifact or a creature.
We'll find out in just
Find
a
out in
second.
if it what exactly it taps. Yeah, artifact or creature.
Nice.
So it's sort of like a slightly cheaper limited use Icy Manipulator. Doesn't seem all that bad. Fog's a creature for a couple turns.
Ice Manipulator used to be really good.
Yeah. The next turn, he casts Mechanized Production targeting Tumble Magnet.
Oh, no.
You thought one Tumble Magnet was good.
2 blue, Enchantment Aura, enchant artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game.
What about all the Tumble Magnets in the world?
So
That sounds miserable.
Sounds awesome.
in like a very quiet voice, he just said, "Live the dream." And I sort of looked at it and did the math. I was like, this is completely unbeatable.
You just didn't have an artifact.
It's just
removal
like,
spell in your
it's
deck?
opposition for the rest of the game. I was just like, I guess I'll die. But it was just the sort of understatement of how insane this play was really stuck with me.
great.
So
Did he actually say live the dream?
he just sort of muttered, barely audible, just live the dream.
Oh man, next time
It was very casual. I was choo choo. It was really great. I hope he did well in that.
That's great when you can tell the person just wants to pop off, but they're just so
trying to be- just be
quiet
cool,
and
be
trying
cool.
not to BM, but they're so stoked. And
Palms
they're just
sweaty.
put,
They just want to jump
put
up
this
on the
into
table and
play.
be like, how I feel.
Do I win?
Yeah, it was
Attack.
powerful magic.
Yeah.
Okay, name me a world enchantment. I get 4 vetoes: Concordant Crossroads, The Abyss, Nether Void, or Sarah Aviary. So other than those,
Chains of Mephistopheles.
Nice. Yeah.
that is not a world enchantment.
Oh, that's better. That means you can play it with chains. No, because I've had chains in the abyss and play at the same
yeah.
time.
Serenity?
Oh! In the Eye of Chaos.
Serenity.
No, in the Eye of the Storm. What's that one called? It's in the Eye of Chaos, right?
In the Eye of Chaos.
Yes! Nailed it. All right. Serge gets 1 point. Can anyone else get one?
I guess Serenity, but that doesn't
Serenity,
not a world
not a
enchantment.
world enchantment.
Darn.
Okay.
I gotta think older.
I got nothing.
I might not have been born when these were.
I have definitely played in the Eye of Chaos in Enchantress to try and hose control decks, and it was not good.
This is the worst card you're not playing.
These all have expansion symbols between legends and visions.
Yeah.
Was the rule that you could only
There could only be one on play.
one world enchantment?
Yeah.
It's
It's like a
a
legendary.
state-based action. It's another type like legend, like Alex said. Except it's even weirder.
Yeah,
There can only be one between the players, I think.
Yeah. Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
if you played a new world,
I actually
enchantment,
think
it superseded the
that
other ones.
rule is still in effect.
Yeah, World Enchantment rule still is out there. It barely ever comes up because not many of them are very playable.
So the best removal spell for the Abyss is the Abyss.
Like I'm pretty sure the
Concordant
only
Crossroads
world
good, yeah.
enchantments that see any play in any constructed format are the Abyss and Nether Void, which are sideboard cards, maybe.
Don't forget about combos with Moat, Mystic Decree.
Oh,
What the-
I should know that one actually. Yeah, fair enough.
From Homelands?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
All
that,
creatures lose flying and island walk?
So
Yeah.
nothing can attack.
that also combos with Island Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ew.
Also, Living Plane, all lands
Oh,
are
I
one
knew that
ones.
one.
Okay.
Pillar Tombs of Aku, anybody? No?
What? I've never even heard of that card.
What the heck is that?
During each player's upkeep, that player sacks a creature or that player loses 5 life and you bury Pillar Tombs.
I've never seen this card in my life.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cards that
Trace Nielsen even.
Yeah, there's a bunch of these that are bad.
sick.
I'm just looking at them. They're not
It looks
good.
really cool though.
Yeah, if there are old cards that didn't stand the test of time, it's because reasons. All right.
Anyway.
Okay.
Well, that is our episode for today. Again, as a recap, we've almost been doing this for half a year, and that's amazing. And that's all thanks to you and to these people and to those people and pointing to G. So thank you so much for tuning in and for all your interactions. A reminder that this is brought to you with your support over at the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. So as always, from us to you, thank you. We'll see you next time. And until then.